Right, good morning ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday the 17th of November 2021. First of all, apologies for absence. Mr Bradbury.
Good morning, Leader. I'm not in receipt of any apologies for this morning.
Thank you. Second item is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order number 16. Do I have any declarations of interest? For the record, none being indicated. Third item is decision notice of the meeting held on the 20th of October 2021. All in agreement? Thank you. And the next item is the leaders' update for today. Colleagues, I start with sad news, and that sad news is the passing of former councillor and honorary alderman Terry Dix. Terry Dix was leader of the County Council from 2001 to 2007, and what I would like to do at this point is just ask Councillor Parry to lead the tribute to Councillor Terry Dix. Councillor Parry was a councillor alongside Terry Dix for those years, and Ian, if you could just say a few words in tribute to Councillor Dix, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, it's indeed extremely sad news. Terry Dix will be remembered as a major figure in the history of this council, having served for a long time in a very distinguished way. He was incredibly likeable as a leader, and he was almost impossible to land a punch on politically, because he was such a decent man, such a fair and friendly personality, that I never saw him become aggressive. I never saw him become angry. Yes, he'd become frustrated, and yes, he would make his points. But he was always, I think, very tolerant, very understanding, and very inclusive in many respects. And I do remember first elected 24 years ago now, meeting Terry Dix for the first time, and I guess before you're elected, you hear about these people, these impressive people within the council who've held positions of power for a long time, and you think they're going to be, mighty and lofty and all those sort of things. And Terry wasn't like that. He was a very friendly and personable and approachable person. And I think, the things he's done for this county, the achievements he's made for this county are innumerable, and I'm sure we'll talk about them at full council. But for this morning, I'd just like to say he was a terrific personality, a great leader and politician in the council, not our political persuasion, of course, but that doesn't matter. And he'll be missed by us as politicians, and no doubt by his family, friends, and the community who all loved him.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Parry. Moving on, colleagues, the nation fell silent this week for Armistice Day and Remembrance Sunday. This included thousands of people gathering at the Armed Forces Memorial at the outstanding National Memorial Arboretum. They were paying tribute to all who paid the ultimate sacrifice defending the rights and freedoms that we all enjoy. It's always a poignant time of year personally, but also a source of great pride that Staffordshire and the National Memorial Arboretum lead the national remembrance and tributes to all those lost in the service of our country. The announcement by government this week that COVID boosters are being extended to the over 40s is a reminder that the virus is still with us. It is so important that people of all ages get their jabs as soon as they are eligible to protect themselves, protect vulnerable loved ones, and stop the spread. One of the many side effects of the pandemic has been the steady growth in demand this year for adult social care. Nationally, home care providers in particular face a real challenge recruiting and keeping staff to look after some of the most vulnerable in our communities. And we are supporting Staffordshire's care sector and in the private part of our meeting today, we will be considering a number of additional measures to ensure people in need get the right help. Elsewhere, it's National Road Safety Week, and a new campaign is showcasing Staffordshire's road safety champions. From our lollipop men and women to community speedwatch volunteers, so many people are doing their bit to keep motorists and pedestrians safe. Staffordshire has some of the safest roads in the country, but it's up to all of us to keep them that way. whether that's teaching our children how to safely cross roads or taking extra time for journeys and sticking to the speed limit. Look out for more details on our website and social media by following #RoadSafetyWeek. Next, I would just like to make note of the COP26 summit that came to a conclusion this week, and just hand over to Councillor Tagg just to say a few words about COP26 as part of the leader's statement.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, COP26 ended last weekend with a commitment to a target of keeping the rise in temperature down to 1.5%. Around 90% of the world now have net zero targets, and the targets agreed in Glasgow stretch over nearly 200 countries and account for 80% of global emissions. Agreement was also reached for a majority of countries to halve deforestation by 2030, and also an agreement to cut methane emissions by 30% by 2030. One of the things which wasn't achieved was the phasing out of coal. The wording was agreed mainly because of China and India was the phasing down of coal. What that means for us here in Staffordshire in the UK, we're going to see an increase in the pace of change. This is a government priority, our Prime Minister's priority. It will change to business as usual for a carbon leaner alternative to the current arrangement, and we need to support businesses to grow and take opportunities that are presenting themselves on this, and a support to that low transition to low carbon lifestyles in the UK. In Staffordshire, we highlighted COP26 with showcasing the LED lights switch over that we're doing across the county, along with our other energy reduction plans that have led to a 25% reduction in the county's carbon emissions. We've represented, many members in the Cabinet have represented the County Council at events for COP26, whether that's planting trees, whether that's summits with Kiel, which I attended, which have been spreading the word that the County Council takes this seriously and has a programme. We agreed at our last Cabinet meeting, Climate Change Action Plan 2. Our members of, all members of the County Council are climate change champions, and all officers are climate change champions to get to where we want to be, which is net zero by 2050. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that very helpful update, Councillor Tagg. Finally, on Friday, it's the official opening of the Stafford Western Access Route. Brilliant. A massive investment and opportunity in our county town. Delivered by the County Council with funding from developers and the Local Enterprise Partnership, it unlocks land for commercial use and new housing developments. It will also ease congestion through the town, in particular around the railway station. And it's another example of how we are securing investment in Staffordshire to support growth and enterprise. And Councillor Williams, I'm fully expecting you to be cutting the ribbon on Friday, is that correct?
I will be there with scissors in hand, Leader, yes, and it's, as you say, a good project, very much like the Lichfield bypass. And I also have to say that with over 90% of materials being recycled on site is a real, and I have to also remind everybody of the high technical design that went over that marshland area to be able to do a different type of piling. It is a real bonus, and I have been pushing to make sure that this sort of information gets shared throughout the country, so yes.
Excellent news. Thank you very much indeed. And so to our next item, which is the next agenda item, the minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 3rd of November 2021. For those that are there, can I take those as a correct record of the meeting? Just somebody nod in approval. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Price. Phew, that was close. Moving to the agenda item number 6 is the update from the COVID-19 member-led Outbreak Control Board. Councillor Dr McMahon, we're with you.
Thank you, Leader. This virus moves at such a fast-moving pace that at the time the Cabinet papers were published, we were in a downward trajectory, although it remained high. It is now the case that we're beginning to see numbers go back up again. This is largely being driven by the 5 to 10-year-olds, whether previously it was 12 to 18 years of age. And as ever, our education cell will support, manage and advise schools whenever it is called upon to do so. Staffordshire as a whole remains higher than the West Midlands and the UK average, so this virus has not gone away. We're gladdened that the elderly and the more vulnerable cases remain stable. We'll also take comfort from the fact that hospital admissions into Staffordshire hospitals are likewise stable, but this is no room for complacency. It is unquestionable that the risk of death, serious disease, hospital admissions and long COVID is markedly reduced with the COVID vaccine. We note the announcement of the booster programme extended to the over 40s, and those between the age of 40 and 50, those vaccines will likely kick in next month and January of 22, being 6 months after their second jab. We also note the extension of a second vaccination to the 16 and 17-year-olds, and we will support and call the local NHS into account in terms of delivering this. We are gladdened by the fact that we have heard from Pfizer and MSD that there's possible oral therapies in the early stages of disease. We're also gladdened by the fact that hospital admissions are about 20% for any given community prevalence, and this is thanks to the vaccine. But all this good news cannot cloud our judgment that we have a covert enemy in our midst, the coronavirus. The best thing we can do in order to protect ourselves and our loved ones, the community, and the economy is to get the vaccine when it is due. The booster cohort of 1 to 9 who are currently due their booster vaccine now sits at 65% as of the beginning of this week. This is better than it was, but we still have another 35% of people to encourage to get it. The 12 to 15-year-olds programme started poorly, but since the primary care networks have picked this up and parents can book through the national booking system, it has picked up, but we still have some way to go. So we as a county council are doing all we can through our comms to help the NHS deliver the vaccine. We are assured that they have the capacity and they have the vaccines. They just need the arms. And we're doing our bit to encourage people to get this vaccine. In terms of all our personal responsibilities, we owe it to ourselves, our loved ones, and the community at large to have respect for this virus and the most vulnerable in our society. We need to enjoy our freedoms we took for granted until March 2020, but be mindful of this covert enemy. And we are doing this in our comms again. We're doing the Up to You programme in terms of the vaccine and showing respect to others. This is why our COVID defences as a county council will remain in place at least until March of next year and possibly longer. That involves the Test and Trace programme, managing outbreaks, supporting the most vulnerable, and supporting the NHS in its vaccine endeavours. We also meet as a local outbreak control board, and the district and boroughs meet as local outbreak control groups in order to have local political buy-in and get real granular detail which informs the strategies. Finally, I just want to say a quick word about the test and trace system. There was work done in King's College London, which was made available last week, and it showed that the triad, the three symptoms that we are used to in relating to COVID, really no longer applies. The presentation of this virus is changing and morphing. In June of this year, 1 in 11 people who thought they had the common cold had COVID. Last month, they came to the view it was a quarter. So we really have to do all we can, and we are doing all we can, to encourage those to get a test regularly when they're asymptomatic, but particularly if they think they've just got a cold. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor McMahon. Councillor Price.
Yeah, just on the one small point. I visited a multi-academy trust yesterday in Uttoxeter, and I have tried to keep engaged with a lot of our schools across the county, particularly through this difficult time. And we had discussions around disruption to learning and the difficulties that COVID had caused schools and obviously education and learning. But I also asked, were there any success stories that perhaps you'd like me to feed back to the county council? And the one I heard again, which I've heard time and time, which I've talked about in the past, but I did feel again was appropriate, was the said that the work that the education cell of the COVID Outbreak Control Board had done an absolutely fantastic job through this period and was continuing to do so. And that although not all of the schools are local authority schools, the academies as well have said that they can always pick up the phone, and they felt fully supported by this authority whenever they just needed advice or guidance. So I just wanted to thank again the Education Outbreak Control Board team for the work that they're doing and the continued support that they are giving to our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor McMahon, we have a cohort who are steadfastly refusing to take the vaccine for whatever reason. Could you just give me a bit more information about how you're tackling some of that sort of dyed-in-the-wool resistance? Or is it a case of saying, well, we'll go for those people who we know will take the booster and just accept the fact that some people will just not be wanting to take the vaccine, which I guess is their choice, but it's for the common good, so I think it's worth still persisting with.
We're absolutely persisting with it, and forgive me, it was amiss of me not to mention it. We're concentrating particularly on the 12 wards with the lowest vaccination uptake. 4 of them are in the town of Burton, which won't surprise you. Every district and borough at least has 1. And we're doing a comms program, a house-to-house program, in order to encourage these people to pick up, to get the vaccine. Because it's crucially important that we're a long way away from having the numbers that we would be comfortable with in order to keep this enemy at bay. So yes, we're doing that as best we can.
Thank you very much indeed. I can see nobody else indicating, so thank you very much indeed for that ongoing update that you continue to provide us with. All power to your elbow, Councillor McMahon. Keep at it. This doesn't end, and you know that, I know that, we all know that, but let's keep on pushing at it. Right, thank you very much indeed. We've now got the next item, which is the Staffordshire Means Back to Business oral update, and this is brought to you by the Deputy Leader, who's also the Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, and I hope you're going to give us good news of a decrease in the claimant count since your last report, but over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Leader. You've just caused me to reverse the order in which I was going to do my update, but I'll come to the claimant count first, because you should always follow your leader. There is further good news regarding claimant count figures, and we've seen another decrease in the number of people in Staffordshire who are claiming universal credit. The rate in Staffordshire now sits at 3.5%, which is compared to a West Midlands rate of 5.9%. For the whole of England, it's 4.9%. So I think you can see there how productive the Staffordshire economy is and how many jobs we have for people to go into. And on that point, between September and October, we've seen an increase in about 18% in job vacancies, which is about 5,500 more vacancies. And we've seen those increases happening throughout the year, but it is gathering pace. That's a good thing. Again, because it shows that our businesses are growing and that they need more people. There are challenges in that we as a place need to meet in terms of making sure that we are getting those workers to those jobs, and particularly workers with the appropriate skills to be able to fill those. A lot of Staffordshire employers need highly skilled workers, and we do need to make sure that we're doing our part in helping those businesses to get those people. On that front, part of our Staffordshire Means Back to Business programme is an apprenticeship support scheme helping smaller businesses to fund both the training and salary elements of apprenticeships, and we're now nearly halfway to our 500 target. We have 240 new apprentices who are being supported through the County Council and our colleagues in our districts and boroughs, which is good news. Halfway there, halfway to go. And on the jobs front, the other important thing to note is that the change in our economic circumstances has been reflected in a change in the approach of what previously was our redundancy and recruitment triage service in Staffordshire, which still offers redundancy services to businesses that need some advice about how to deal with needing to make staff redundant or hopefully trying to avoid it, but the focus of that service is shifting very much more towards helping to link people up with jobs. And that's because the demand for the redundancy geared services is so dramatically lower, actually, than we ever expected throughout the whole period of the pandemic, but particularly now. The focus is about making sure that we link people up with those jobs that are there. Happily, the demand isn't there on the redundancy front, and so that change has been made, which is very welcome. The other thing that I did want to focus on today is some of the successes that Staffordshire has had in terms of securing government funding, investment in our area, and it's something that happily we're able to talk about a lot here in Staffordshire. Levelling up is very real here in terms of the investment that we receive. And there are three things that I'll highlight in that regard. The first is our success, both as the County Council and as Staffordshire, in bidding into the government's Community Renewal Fund. That's focused on schemes that directly help people in terms of community renewal, changes in the economy and sustainability. And the County Council has successfully won just over £750,000 to further fund the Staffordshire Means Back to Business programme, which I mentioned earlier with regard to its support for apprenticeships, but which also supports training and startup activities. So it's great to see that recognition from government that scheme that we are delivering with our district and borough partners is working, and that they want to put some more fuel in the fire of that. Staffordshire University has also been successful in securing nearly £600,000 for an innovation and productivity pathfinder. That's all about helping to link people, particularly people in areas of Staffordshire where there are lower skills, with the training that they need, and also the broader support to move into higher skilled occupations. Very much fits with that demand that we see in our economy at the moment. So again, good to see government recognising that. And the third scheme that's been supported is actually in the Cabinet Member for Environment's district, which is an award of nearly £220,000 to Newcastle Borough Council to support them in developing solar electric generation and storage, smart LED lighting installation, and also reducing the use of fossil fuel in their borough, which is very welcome indeed. And you can see their government funding heading right to the key points in terms of what we need to do with our economy in Staffordshire to make sure that we're helping our citizens lead good lives and to be economically productive. Two other things that I'll mention. The first is our business and enterprise team has been successful in securing nearly £600,000 of funding to help demolish the former Magistrates Court in Stafford, which is just over to my right at the moment. If I squinted out the window hard enough, I could probably see the last bits of that coming down. That is a key part of the regeneration of Stafford, our county town, and comes alongside major investments in terms of the Future High Streets Fund, another government scheme, but also investment from Newcastle Borough Council and private sector partners in transforming the face of Stafford, which is going to look absolutely magnificent in a few years' time when all of that is complete. So really welcome that government is helping us in doing our part in that, in clearing away a defunct building and putting something better in its place. The final thing to mention is the excellent news that Cannock Chase District Council has been awarded £20 million through the Levelling Up Fund to transform their town centre. And that is particularly good news because Cannock is an area of real opportunity at the moment. The MacArthur Glen retail village that opened there earlier this year is quite a sight to behold for anybody who's been. It is an incredible sight. It's going to draw a huge number of people to Cannock to shop, but it's really important that the town centre doesn't suffer as a result of that, and that investment will rebalance the town versus the shopping village and make sure there are reasons to go to both of those. So again, really intelligent government intervention into our area to make sure that we can do the things we need to for our citizens. I'll leave it there, Leader, but happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you very much indeed. That was comprehensive. Councillor Parry. And
Thank you very much indeed for the report, Dr. Lee. That was really interesting and comprehensive. One of the benefits of improvement in our economy is jobs. And I heard from a large recruitment organisation recently saying that the jobs market had significantly shifted over a recent period, and that it was very much a candidates market in many respects. And it made me think whether this was having an impact on one of the more difficult areas of employment and recruitment, and that is youth employment, both for people coming out of school, sixth form, and also students coming out of further and higher education, which have in the past found it more challenging to find suitable employment. And I think that's where we've had a lot of sticking, if you like, in the jobs market, of people not being able to find suitable jobs or at least starting positions. Are there any indications here in Staffordshire that that's improved, that's changing, or that graduates or school leavers are finding it easier now to find employment?
Thank you, Councillor Parry. So, youth employment is very important concern for us in Staffordshire, as it is everywhere else in the country. We're in the fortunate position in Staffordshire that we have one of the lowest rates of NEETs, so young people not in education, employment or training in the country, and that's something that we've had to work really hard at over a number of years to make sure that we are inspiring our young people to get the qualifications they need to move into jobs, but also providing the practical help to link people up so that they can match their particular skills and talents with the right jobs. The pandemic was hard on younger people in terms of unemployment, and one of the other things that we've worked particularly hard on, again, is linking those younger people to those opportunities, and we've seen a considerable decrease. I think I've mentioned it in some of my other updates, a considerable decrease in youth unemployment within that overall decrease in unemployment we've seen in Staffordshire. So we have low unemployment rates, and those younger people who were harder hit by the pandemic, we have seen a faster decrease in the number of those people who are out of work than many other areas. But there's always more to do. It's really important, so thank you for highlighting it.
Councillor Jessel.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you very much for that very positive news, which I think is really important. We all hear the news and read the headlines, and we're bombarded with somewhat negative news, and I think it is very, very good to hear that central government, and we've been successful in securing central government funding to invest in the county. It's what's needed, and particularly in town centres. I think if people see their town centres slowly dying, it actually is a very quick downward spiral. And I think to see investment coming into places like Stafford, Newcastle, Burton, I think is brilliant news. The one thing that concerns me a little is the government, local government, the public sector doing their bit of ensuring that there's investment in town centres. Can I have the Cabinet members' assurance that actually wherever possible we engage with the private sector who own significant proportion of the properties in town centres, that we actually engage with them to do their bit? You know, I'm aware of town centres where a lot of empty shops, looking rather down at heel, are in private ownership. And I think that there is a partnership here. The public sector, central government, through the taxpayer, can't do everything. Private sector has got to step up to the mark. And I would like to think that wherever possible, we engage with those private landlords to encourage them to do their bit, because it's in their interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jessel. The short answer is yes. And most properties in town centres are actually owned by a relatively small number of large organisations, investment funds, pension funds and the like. But we do engage with those property owners alongside our districts and boroughs, because we have to remember that partnership working that we have is particularly important when it comes to premises and local planning matters as well, where is partnership working that's the key for local authorities. But one or two of the things that I think are really important are, firstly, local authorities and government overall can't do it all. They can do their bit. And just at the moment, I think we're needing to take a step forward because there are things that it's difficult for the private sector to do in terms of the general condition of our town centres. We need to do that, but we need to do that both alongside those private businesses, saying, what do you need in order to make things work for you so that you will invest? But then we also need to say to them, it's over to you to do the rest. We're not here to do everything. We're here to do our proper part.
Councillor Taggart.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think on the back of Deputy Leader's report, I think Staffordshire really is at the epicentre of levelling up, isn't it? And it's really good news that, you know, Cannock have now got that money for their town and the exciting proposals that they're putting forward, joining the other towns across the county that have benefited from that. Really pleased about the Community Renewal Fund and those three great bids that have been successful, particularly one, as you mentioned, Deputy Leader, about the funding for the environmental course to change environmental strategy in Newcastle to begin to kick off three of those areas of our strategy so we can get to our aim of net zero. Also, I think tying in with our town deal bid, which was successful for £23.5 million, our Future High Streets Fund, which was successful for 11 million. Each of those has an environmental angle to it, the sustainable transport goals within the town deal. I think what we've seen when we talked about at the last cabinet, when we agreed our climate change action plan for the county, was that green thread. I think you can see in these bids that we're making for government for levelling up funding, and that it runs straight through what we're trying to achieve. So really pleased, and you know, there's a lot of hard work to deliver on these now to get the benefits, but I think a step change has come about over the last few years, and that is that levelling up fund, and as I say, Staffordshire is at the centre of that.
Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Leader. I'm grateful to the portfolio holder in mentioning the Cannock grant and MacArthur Glen. As with every town in Staffordshire, what's good for Cannock is good for Staffordshire. And MacArthur Glen are delighted by what's happening in the outlet. We are hugely grateful for the grant to develop the town centre. And armed with that commercial muscle, we will do all we can to support the Staffordshire endeavour to make it a great place to live, to work and to visit. Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just wanted to commend the Deputy Leader on all the hard work that is being done behind the scenes, particularly where it comes to the County Council working collaboratively with all boroughs and districts. Interestingly, our local reporter here actually today wrote an article this morning that was in the paper talking about the fact that people are being very negative about the high streets, but actually don't fully appreciate a lot of the hard work that's going on. I'm a Stafford resident myself, and a Stafford Borough Councillor and a County Councillor through and through too, and I have to say that I'm feeling very, very positive at the moment with the work that's being done by this authority and with partners within Stafford. As mentioned earlier in the Leader's statement, the SWAR is due to open this week, so the Stafford Western Access Route, fantastic investment in this town. And there are numerous projects that are undertaken currently and are about to kick-start within Stafford Town Centre itself. I can name at least 9 major projects, including the History Centre work that's beginning, regeneration, of course, the Future High Street Fund, the Shire Hall investment, of which we've talked about before. So the future's looking pretty rosy as far as I am concerned for Stafford, our county town. And again, I'd just like to thank the Deputy Leader for all the hard work that he's put in place behind that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Price, and thanks to the other colleagues who've spoken very positively about their areas. And it's good that we have so much good news about so many parts of Staffordshire, and this county council's role in that is very much as the wheel on which many of these things turn. We talk to government about our needs. We talk to businesses about our needs, often privately, because it's commercially sensitive, which speaks to your point, Councillor Price, about people sometimes wondering what we're doing, and it's going to be really exciting over the next few years. when all of that takes shape on the ground in so many of our towns. But there is more to do. There are other towns in Staffordshire that need the same, and our focus is on making sure that those places also get the investment that they want. So more to do, but an awful lot going on, which is good news for Staffordshire.
Moving forward to agenda item number 8, we've got the half-yearly Treasury Management Report for the period ended 30th September, brought to us by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry. The sharp-eyed amongst you who read the financial pages in the press will have spotted the troubles out in the Far East with corporate debt and corporate debt payments. Very, very significant potential crisis. And this highlights the importance of these reports that are brought to us regularly by the finance portfolio holder. So, Councillor Parry, hopefully with no news about about corporate debt crisis in the Far East, bringing us the Treasury Management Report for the period ended 30th of September.
Thank you. And you're quite right, Leader, that this is one area of our council activity which is affected by economic activity, both nationally and globally, in terms of interest rates, inflation, which we've seen today measured by CPI, increasing to over 4%, indicating price increases within the market, interest rates which are maintained at a lower level. These are factors which affect the way that the cash in which the council holds has to be managed. And the purpose of this report, which is our half-yearly report to the council, which is a regulatory duty, is to provide that transparency and assurance that the council's cash is being managed effectively and properly. I can report that the Treasury Management Panel, which is chaired by the County Treasurer and comprises the senior officers of the council, meets regularly to consider Treasury matters and is also advised by an external professional body. All transactions undertaken were authorised by officers within the limits approved, and all investments were to counterparties on the approved counterparty list and fully meet the requirements of the relevant regulations, and the council operates within the limits of the prudential indicators set out by the council's treasury management practices and annual treasury management strategy, which is set by the council. And with the exception of upper limit for variable interest rates exposure and the external loans limit, the reason for which will be addressed in this report. It's important to note that for a number of reasons, pandemic, the fact that we hold cash on behalf of the LEP and we hold cash on behalf of Midlands Engine, the balances that the council owns and has to manage have significantly increased from around 259 to around 360 million pounds. That means that there is more cash to manage and to make sure that we have security and liquidity of those funds. Clearly, there is a need to lend that money securely, but also with a degree of liquidity, as we will need access to it for both, if you like, the working capital of the organisation, but also to support our investment decisions. You will recall we've had this policy in place for quite a number of years now, and we were one of the first councils, I think, to take this innovative step where we actually use our cash instead of borrowing money on either the PWLB rates or otherwise. That actually saves us around £800,000 a year, so there's a benefit to us financially to the council, but it also reduces our borrowing requirements as well. So there's an absolutely positive continuation of that strategy for the moment, and will probably remain so until interest rates make that equation less favourable to us. So as I say, the investments that the panel approve are all those which are either AAA government-backed, etc., and are there to provide us with the security that we require. I have 4 recommendations for the Cabinet, sorry, 3 recommendations for the Cabinet Leader, which I'll make unless there's any questions. No, what a surprise. I recommend, therefore, to Cabinet that the Cabinet note the Treasury management activities for the half year ended the 30th of September 2021. The Cabinet note the prudential indicators detailed in Appendix 2 and approve the increase to the upper limit of the variable rate interest exposure as detailed in paragraph 47 of this report. The Cabinet note and approve the proposed revision of the non-standard investment limits detailed in paragraphs 40, 43 and Appendix 5 of this report. I recommend those. Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Of course, we're often reminded it's the return of our money rather than the return on our money that's very important. And at the point at which the Treasury Management Report becomes exciting is probably the point at which things are going wrong. So it's nothing personal that there were no questions. It is just that this is how it is supposed to be. Go ahead.
It may be dull, but it's actually, I find it very interesting, to be honest. And having conversations with the very competent and bright people that run this for us in the council, led by our, obviously, a county treasurer, who's also very competent, very bright, apparently. It's various blushes. No, but this is crucial for us. You know, it's serious. It's 300+ million pounds worth of public money that we're handling, and we do this I think, very efficiently and very cleverly, but we also do it with massive security around it. We all know the history of this, don't we, why we do it now?
Yes, and of course the Icelandic bank scandal that led to this saw a lot of public money being lost. So I suppose it was my cack-handed attempt at a compliment, but I hope it was taken as such. Anyway, well, thank you very much indeed for presenting the report. You've made the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
That is unanimous for the record. Moving to the agenda item number 9, which is decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. There are 3. Cabinet member for Children and Young People in approving the proposals for the usage of additional income from the COVID-19 local support grant, and I've seen that the publicity associated with that. Councillor Sutton, I think it's a useful point at which you could just come in and just highlight some of the important issues around that.
Absolutely, thank you, Leader. The authority, along with other authorities, has received a continual amount of COVID funds to help to address financial support for some of the neediest in our county, with the cost of food, energy and water bills and other associated costs. And this is the money that we have primarily used to support the families of children entitled to free school meals across the vast majority of the holiday periods since the start of the pandemic, and that will continue. And it's probably a good opportunity as well to just mention that the holiday activity and food programme for the summer holidays will go live at the end of this week, where families who children entitled to free school meals will be able to sign up for local activities linked to food provision within their area. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. The next one that was approved was from the Cabinet Member for Health and Care in approving the decision to award a contract for drug and alcohol services for inpatient detoxification following a competitive procurement process, and to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the 14 local authorities of the West Midlands Consortium. Finally, the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, approval of the decision to cease trading and decommission Staffordshire's school library service on the 31st of December 2021, and to provide a new offer from Staffordshire's Library and Arts Services from the 1st of January 2022. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, Councillor Wilson? No. Next agenda item is the forward plan of key decisions. The following in December in public: Burton Town Deal River Trent Cycle Footbridge update, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport. VCSE Capacity Building Recommission, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture. The IA 2609 Framework for Responsive Property Maintenance and Day Works, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial. Where is he? My goodness, can hardly wait. Next is the Burton Town Deal proposed library move, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture. Again in public in December, Diversity and Inclusion, Principles, Objectives and Action Plan, brought to you by myself. Proposed relocation and expansion of St Leonard's Primary School, Stafford, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. Families, Health and Wellbeing 0 to 19 Service Contract Extension, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People. Home to School Transport Review of Temporary Vacant Seat Scheme, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. Then moving into private, Chatterley Valley West Project Update, brought to you by the Deputy Leader of the Council. And then December exempt decisions, formal report of the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman regarding SEND, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. Busy one in December. Moving into January, in public, the Strategic Plan and Medium-Term Financial Strategy, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. Potential Joint Coroner's Service Business Case, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture. Options appraisal for the future commissioning model for supported living services in Staffordshire, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. And then in private in January, future contracting options for supported living from the 1st of October 2022 onwards, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. In January in public, maybe the Strategic Plan and Medium-Term Financial Strategy in 2022-27, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. Presumably that's the reserve date in case it has to go, 2 dates for those that are eagle-eyed. Moving forward to February in public, the business case for care home developments, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care. Integrated Performance Report, Quarter 3, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources and the Leader of the Council. In private, Entrust Service Delivery Agreement, brought to you by the Leader of the Council. In public, Staffordshire Rural Economic Strategy, brought to you by the Deputy Leader of the Council. Moving to March, in public, 2022-23 Schools Capital Programme, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Education and SEND. In public again in April, Integrated Performance Report Quarter 4, 21-22, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources and the Leader of the Council. And that is the plan. A busy time ahead, ladies and gentlemen. Busy time indeed. Right, the next agenda item is the exclusion of the public. I move that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraph of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated below. I so move.